Hello you lot, Miller Corner here and welcome belatedly to 2024. I'm really sorry I haven't put out a video sooner than this, but there's a very good reason for it. The first video I wanted to do this year was on the Super Seicento here. Lots of little fixes and mods and little tweaks on a little nugget just to keep improving it and making it better. But none of them was enough to be its own video. It kind of needed to be part of a bigger video, and thanks to work commitments and life commitments and awful weather, meaning I've had to do it all disjointedly, kind of 1 or 2 bits a week, there hasn't been enough to do this video for quite some time. So what you're going to see is a series of little clips over the course of most of January actually, making this little car better than it was when we last saw it at the end of last year. So without further ado, roll the clips. So one of the things I want to sort is this cowling round the steering wheel. Now you might notice that it is the standard factory sort of dark blackish grey. It's definitely not black because that's black because I've painted it, and as a result it doesn't really match anything. I'm also going to be repainting the hood cowling for the Speedo and the rev counter, because now I've got my lovely flock dashboard which does genuinely stop all these kind of sun reflecting off it in the summer. These now become the only focal points because you can see they're kind of slightly glossy, they're certainly not matte, and as a result you do get lots of light bouncing off of these and showing in the windscreen, which can be distracting. So these are coming off, these are going to go matte black, as is this. But we have got one issue with this because I haven't yet connected up the microphone for my lovely new head unit. So first things first, I need to get this out, run the wiring through and work out where it's going to go, because obviously if I need to make any holes or drill any marks in this or anything, I want to do it before I paint it so I can then tidy it up and make it look neat. Done that, I'm fairly certain, because this has got a sticky backing on it, I can put the microphone here just by the column stalk, run the wire there. It's then going to tuck behind this cowling. They're going to tuck it up under there and put it through that tiny little part of the dash you can see. So actually I won't need to make any holes or incisions in the cowling. I can then pull this straight off, and actually it's fairly simple because I've done it before, as you may remember. We've got 4 Phillips head screws underneath. This top half of cowling will then pull away pretty much without that half holding it on. So take that off, then that pulls off. As for the Speedo here, there's a little bobble you have to pull off with a flathead screwdriver or something, very irritating from memory. Get the bolt out of that. For the rev counter there, you pull that little blanking plate off, and there's a bolt under there. Take that off, unplug it, then those come off. I've done it all before, you should have seen it all before if you've watched my dashboard flocking fail video, but I'm going to do it very quickly this time round with just a snap of the fingers. Well, the old YouTuber finger snapping powers have clearly had a break over the Christmas, because they are working incredibly well this year. They've not only removed all the trims from the car, but also sanded them down, cleaned them, and put them in the garage. How very useful. Now I'm going to apologise for this slightly crap camera angle. I'm working with my phone propped up on some old videos, as you can probably tell from the edges of the shot. So without further ado, you know what it's time for. Joe paints random stuff. Do. Start as you mean to go on, Joe. Don't be too creative with your content, will you? Quick sit rep for you. It's now so cold it's actually snowing. But anyway, it's a little bit warmer in the car, and that means we can fix something else. Now outwardly this looks fine. However, can you hear this? That clicky rattly noise happens pretty much all the time. Whenever you drive over bumps, this car seems to make that noise, even when you're driving along smoothly at motorway speeds. And if I grab hold of the column stalk arrangement, I can move it. So I'm wondering if those two things, the rattly noise and the fact this moves, are connected, because obviously this should be rigid and staying still on the steering column so that it doesn't just move around and slide while you're driving. And maybe if I pull the steering wheel and the boss kit off, I can now get to all the screws and the bolts to access this, and then hopefully I can either tighten it up, or worst case scenario, in this carrier bag down here, I've actually got another set of column stalks. This is from the previous shelf of this car. So if this is broken in some way, that means it won't tighten up, I can just replace it. So let's take this and this off, which you've seen me do before, but you're now watching some footage of happening anyway, and then we can find out if this is repairable or if we change it over. The column stalks are held onto the steering column itself by this sort of brass, it's almost like a hose clamp type thing with an Allen-headed bolt in the top of it, and that tightens down to put the whole column stalk assembly onto the columns. So I'm going to tighten it up as much as I possibly can, and hopefully we can stop this rotating, because if it's not rotating, in theory it can't rattle. It does seem not that tight, so we might be onto something here. What's that like? Ah, I've lost the bit at the end of the hose clip. Is that any better? No. Interesting, okay. So this still moves, and still definitely shouldn't. I can't tighten it up to get it on, so I think next up we're going to loosen it to get it off. I've got the column stock unit off. This is the one that was making the noise. Even with all the screws tightened up as much as I possibly can, this one still rattles, if you can hear, whereas the other set did not rattle. So what I've done is put it back on the steering column, attached the wires to it, and I've tightened up the clamp on the back as tight as I possibly can. It is a brass sort of clamp there, so I'm not going to go mental with it because it will just bend eventually. But you'll notice with it in place, there is no movement. I did that one up as tight as I possibly can, and it was still spinning. So what I'm now going to do is put it all back together and find out if I've still got a rattle. Wasn't the stalks, it's still making the same bloody noise with the other ones on it. From here, things went downhill. We tried swapping back to the other stalks with no stalks at all, removing the clock spring, sorting out the horn wiring and removing the speedo binnacle. But that rattling noise persisted regardless. The best we could come up with was that the top bearing was dry, so we greased it thoroughly, and it also made no difference. If you've got any idea what might be causing this rattling noise from near the top of the steering column, please let me know in the comments. Next though, some routine maintenance. I top off the coolant and battle with the world's worst oil cap to carefully top off the oil, and then a few days later, the fixes continue. You'll have to excuse the get up, it is freezing cold today. It's only about 1 degree at its most. Thanks, Britain. Next thing I want to sort out on this car is something slightly peculiar. The rear wiper. Now, it works broadly well, the blade is a bit knackered, but you'll notice the slightly weird sweeping pattern it's got. Works all the way here, works fine, works fine. This bit here at the top, it never gets to. Even if you put water on it and you spray it on and then wipe it yourself, it just never gets to it for whatever reason. This wiper arm doesn't feel particularly tight, and the blade itself is a bit buggered anyway. Thankfully, I've got a replacement one, and it is only one nut holding it on. So let's change this over and see if actually, with all this crap winter weather around, I can see out my back window. I can't do this in gloves. Yes, it's cold, but I can't actually hold anything. Sorry, hands. There we go. Wiper itself just literally clips in. It's a unique design on Seicentos. It's not just like a smaller windscreen wiper. It's got a weird bobble thing in it. They can be quite hard to fit, as I'm ably demonstrating. Okay, this was far easier when I had use of my fingers. Ow, that hurt. When you do this up, just give it a little nip. Don't go mental, because you don't want to strip the thread or damage the wiper motor, because then you're into a whole nother world of problems. There we go. Glass is now wet. So let's see how she fares, shall we? Okay, let's put some more water on that, because that wiper pattern's still looking a bit funny to me. Because now you look, it's had the chance to sweep all the way around, that is a clear arc. So I'm going to call that, for now, sorted. I have actually already tried doing this once before, putting a whole new wiper arm on it, and it didn't make any difference. So I'm going to drive this around for a while. You can see how dirty the roads are at the moment. It won't take long for this to need cleaning again, and we'll find out if that's a fix. But for now, it looks better, the wiper blade doesn't squeak, and it seems to make a difference. So I'm calling that, provisionally, a win. Well, I've driven the car for about a week in pretty awful conditions, so there's been all sorts of road grime that I've had to wipe off with the rear wiper, and we're back where we started. As you saw initially, it did clear the entire screen in a full arc, and I thought we cured it, but gradually it started doing less and less and less, to the point where now it won't actually do this bit, and it doesn't matter what I do, it will not wipe that bit of the window. It's still contacting, you can still see the wiper blade is on the screen, but it will not actually make contact with that bit of it, which means this whole area here isn't swept, and I have no idea why that is. best I can come up with is this scratch put in the rear window by a previously knackered rear wiper blade is kind of pushing the blade out a bit, because when you look, it is still definitely touching the screen the whole way along with room to spare. So there's no other reason why that wouldn't be touching there, unless it is something to do with this scratch, or maybe I've got to space the rear wiper out somehow. If you've got any idea, if you've ever had this issue happen with any rear wiper, leave alone a Seicento one, do let me know, because I do want to cure this crap once and for all. Right, next up then, it's these rear windows, which look fine, and they've got lots of lovely stickers on there, but these seals, they do look a bit grotty. They've got a little bit of overspray on from when we did the respray on this car, and the rear windows do fog up a little bit. It doesn't leak, but it does fog up a little bit when it rains. So thankfully I have got the other window seals from the written off shelf of this car. So next up, we're going to pop these windows out, which is very simple, and then put some new sealant on the old seals, put it in, and hopefully, fingers crossed, we can smarten it up and stop the fogging up. Once the window is out, the old seal can be removed and the aperture thoroughly cleaned before the replacement seal, which is also thoroughly cleaned and then pumped full of silicone sealant, can be slotted in and then delicately thumped into place. After a few hours to let the sealant set, the window can be refitted. Right, with that done, let's keep up the momentum. So let's move on to something else. You might remember just before the NEC Classic Motor Show in November, I made these custom black wire mesh grills for the front of this car, but I didn't have time to replace the fog lights. The standard Seicento ones were leaking and cracked and rusty and just knackered, so they went in the bin. So I've got something new and completely different. These, which are, much like my headlights, angel eye projector fog lights. These come with brackets, and the plan is, I've already taken this grill off, as you can see, put the bracket down in there, mount this, and then just cut little holes in my custom grills to fit these lovely new fog lights. Here is my mounting solution. Now, these black brackets that you're looking at, they come with the lights as standard, and they're pretty good, but not ideal for mounting inside a bumper. So I've then gone and got these metal right 90-degree brackets. I got 10 of them for £1.50, so that was a bit of a bargain. Then I've used speed clips to attach them to the brackets for the fog lights, then drilled through them and put some self-tapping screws to attach 2 more in to create a 180-degree angle like that. And as a result, you can tuck this up in here. There's a lip on the inside of the bumper that can then screw down into. So I'm going to bolt that in place, bolt the fog light into it, and then hopefully that should mount it in the right place to just gently poke out of the bumper here in the little outcut where the original fog lights went. So there is our new fog light all bolted in place. And to be honest, there was no chance in hell of you being able to see this while I was doing it, so let me talk you through it using the other bracket here. So where these 2 lower bolt holes are here, I placed them at the underside of the bumper, then got a little bit of paint over there and daubed paint through these 2 screw holes, because I couldn't actually get a drill in there with all the stuff that's going on there. It's very, very tight and cramped within that bumper. So I daubed 2 bits of paint through those holes, then took the bracket away with the light on it, and then drilled where the little blobs of paint are. Just wound 2 self-tappers through from underneath on the bumper to act as 2 sort of dowels, put the brackets back in place. They then seated very easily, wound the self-tappers in, and the net result is this fog light is now in really solidly, and because it's got 2 little bolts in the side of the bracket, I can adjust this so when I first drive the car, I'm going to try it in the dark, I can find it if it's too high, too low, at the wrong angle, whatever. I can adjust that properly before we put it all and button it up for good. Now I'm going to do exactly the same over there. It will be a little bit harder to line it up because there's the radiator on that side of the car. Let's mount the lights first, then we can get on with wiring them in. I am so keen. This is going to be so good, look. So it's yet another new day, and I've put the car up on some ramps so I can get underneath it to get to my brackets, and both the fogs are now mounted. I'm actually really, really pleased with those. After a lot of eyeballing and measuring and trial and error, I have actually got these both square in the right place. It wasn't quite first time on either side. Trial and error, like I said. They are now fitted, they are now square, and next we just need to wire them in. Red is positive, white is negative, thanks to the wiring diagram with the box, and the existing fog light wiring is all still here. I've just cable tied it up, so I can cut that down, reduce this back to just the wiring itself, then crimp on some new connectors, join all that together, and then my new fog lights should hopefully work. How good is that? The angel eye rings, projector lights. Oh, just looks amazing. Ties in so nicely with the headlights as well. That is a cracking job. Right, it's a new day. It's a beautiful new day, and we're on to the final bit of this job, which is grills. Now, obviously, when we made these, I didn't make any cutouts for the fog lights because I didn't have them at the time. So now what I'm going to do is just stick one screw in it just to hold it in place. Don't be fooled by the sunlight, by the way. It's still only, I'm filming this on the 1st of February, and it is not that warm. In the absence of any snippers, I'm using the kitchen scissors. Don't tell my girlfriend. Ow! Got my fingers in the scissors. God. Okie dokie. Where are we at? There's literally one little tail there, and then that will fit. I'm not joking, it's there. There we go. Right, see you on the other side. Now, I'm going to apologise for how disjointed this video has been. Obviously, this has been filmed over a number of weeks. I've not been able to dedicate long periods of time in one go to doing things on the car, so it's been kind of as and when I've had time. The weather in this time of year in England is pretty shambolic, to be honest. I mean, there's been days where it's been peeing it down with rain so hard you wouldn't even be able to see me. There's been days where it's been so cold I'd have been shivering so much you wouldn't be able to see me. Days where it's been so foggy that you wouldn't be, you get the point, you wouldn't be able to see me. Although, as someone who unfortunately has seen me, that might have been preferable. And if anyone's wondering, the Mercedes will be making a return soon as well. It's currently off having bodywork done on it because it's not perfect. And I'm not trying to make it perfect, I'm trying to make it usable, but I do also like the idea of a presentable car. Super, so that can now go there. I can do a screw on there. I'm rather fond of that too. There you go, meshes back in, cut around the fog light, so that's all good. That is not half bad. So there we have it, a few little fixes and small mods to the little nugget to kick off 2024, and we've had a mixed bag with this video. I've got the cowling trims and the speedo and rev counter painted matte black, they look really good, happy with those. I've got the microphone in for the radio so I can now make phone calls in the car. Tried and failed horribly to cure that horrendous rattling from inside the steering column, and we've tried everything with this. To be honest, I'm completely out of ideas. So if you've experienced this rattling on a Seicento, you know what it could be, please jump in the comments and let me know, because I've got no idea with that one. Fitted a new rear wiper, which does clear the window on the bit it touches better, but there is still that big block at the top where it's not getting it. Again, out of ideas on that one, unless it is that scratch in the back window needs polishing off. I've no idea. Comments down below if you know how I can sort that one out. We've got new rear window seals in, and fingers crossed they're going to be watertight and stopping the car fogging up, so I'm calling that a win. We've also put in, of course, those fantastic new fog lights, chuffed with those, trim the grills to fit, and we've topped up the oil and the coolant. A few little odds and sods jobs just to get this car on its way in earnest for 2024. There will be bigger and better things coming for the Super Seicento this year, a few little cosmetic upgrades and mechanical improvements and so on, just to get this car up to its very best. As ever, do click subscribe if you want to see more content with this mad little car and my various other weird and wonderful vehicles, including my girlfriend's C30 of course, and we'll catch you very soon everybody. Thanks for watching and have a good one.